I'm back again. I've got the same jug, same set of flowers. Stay with me if you want to see how I can create a different design with the same flowers as this arrangement here. Welcome back to video number 2. Now, if you've already seen this gorgeous arrangement here in a jug, then I'm back with the same container and the same flower choice to see how we can reinvent that floral design into something a little bit different. And this time I'm going to do like an all-round design so that you get to see a different way of arranging flowers. The greenery that I used in the previous arrangement was Eucalyptus and some Spirea, and I'm going to start by reusing the same pieces of Eucalyptus just to go around the outside of my arrangement so that I get a little bit of a circular pattern starting to take place. Then in between those sections, I'm going to use the Spirea again. And you might notice that the floral foam that I've got today is quite low in my container. If you're limited to the choice of flowers that you've got to work with and you don't have many varieties or you don't have the availability to go out and buy lots of flowers, then try and remember that the bigger your foam is, the more flowers and the more foliage you're going to have to use to cover it. So if you're a little bit restricted to your choice or your budget or availability, then keep your foam nice and low down in your container because it'll be much quicker and much easier to hide. So now I've gone around the outside, you'll see that I've created a little bit of a circular outline, but I don't have any height. So next I'm going to go in with some greenery in the center of my foam this time, raising it up so that we get some height in the middle. And the height of my arrangement is a bit less than the height of my container. So if I think of the jug again on top, that's about the maximum that I want to go. Almost think about turning the jug upside down, and the height of the jug is really as tall as you want to go for this particular style. It is also helpful to turn your arrangement around as you're working on it so that you get a more evenly spaced out set of foliage, which will help you get a more all-round shape. If you work at it from one position, you'll end up with it slightly front facing. Now, in the previous arrangement, I used some of the Eucalyptus quite tall at the back of the arrangement. But what I'm going to do now is cut it down into shorter pieces, and that's going to help link the outside of the arrangement to the middle and give me a little bit of contrast and a bit of heavier foliage in the middle. And as simply as that, we've nearly covered all of the foam there in the middle. Now I'm going to put my larger focal flowers more towards the middle. You can do your softer flowers first if you prefer, but what I often find is if I go in a round shaped design and then try and get in flowers into the middle, I sometimes damage the pieces that are on the outside. So these gorgeous orange sort of bi-coloured rose that has that novelty sort of seed head there in the center is going to act really nicely to give me my more dominant, more focal flower there in the middle. And I've placed them fairly equally spaced out so that the gap in between them is fairly similar, and that will help give me a more rounded shape. Now, in the previous design we looked at this lovely Phlomis, and this can go shorter and more towards the middle. That will help give me a bit of height in the center, contrast in color and texture. And I've gone with quite a summery color combination. The blue and the orange are opposite colors on the color wheel, and I've introduced a yellow just really for a bit of contrast and a bit of interest. And what I'm going to do is to spread out the yellow as equally as I can around the outside. I'm not too concerned that the shape of the flowers isn't the same. As long as the yellow colour is brought around the outside edge, then I think it's going to work okay. It might just look a bit heavier, visually more heavy on one side, but for a small arrangement like that, I think we'll be okay, and I think we'll get away with it. So a few more of the Phlomis that were in the previous design. you could be lucky enough to have this in the garden. It comes in a few different varieties and few different shape heads. But overall, a bit uneven, and that's because I haven't got equal amounts of the yellow flower, but I've got a nice outline shape and height started in the arrangement there as well. The flowers in the centre that are more heavy give me a focal point, and then the softer flowers towards the outside really help to make the design visually quite pleasing. Now, those little Picollini Gerbera, I'm going to start with one towards the centre, and that means that I've got that orange colour and texture towards the centre, and then I'm going to use slightly shorter ones just dotted around the outside. Some of them are quite short because we've used them in a previous arrangement, so I'm a bit limited with the stem length, but I'm not worried. It's a fairly rustic design, doesn't have to be perfect on either side. As long as we've got a pleasing outline and a fairly even distribution of the colours and textures, I think I can work with that. Right, so that's the Gerbera all the way around. I have got a few extra Gerbera, but I won't add them in because I think that's cheating. And my final flower in this design is going to be the blue Cornflowers, a very seasonal flower. These ones have come from the local flower farm very close to where I work, and at this time of the year I tend to do lots of locally grown weddings that are more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. So more often than not, I've got some amazing flowers here that you may not have seen before, you may not be familiar with their names, but they are really interesting to work with. The cornflower, of course, is a lovely one to grow in the garden. It pretty much self-seeds. It's quite easy to grow if you've got a bit of a wildflower patch. And this one is my last little blue cornflower. And what I'm going to do, just to soften the top bit, so everything that I've got in there at the moment has been used in the previous arrangement. I haven't added anything extra, but I feel it needs to be softened a little bit. The larger flowers in the centre are visually quite heavy, so I'm just going to add in some more of that bridal crown or the Spirea that you might have in your garden towards the centre, just so that we get a bit of a softer look to the arrangement. And anything that you may have growing in your garden that's soft, thin, fairly lightweight and airy like this is great for this type of arrangement. Gives that really lovely country look. You could have a smaller eucalyptus flower, but that lighter greenery really adds a softness and I think makes the design more rustic in its appearance. Two little bits just tucked in towards the front section there, and then I'll keep spinning it around so I can see it from the opposite side. Remember that this is an all-round arrangement, so there should be something interesting at the back as well as at the front. And when we look at it from overhead, it should be fairly round and fairly circular. Okay, I think that's my final little bit of greenery. So design 2, is that my quickest video? Possibly. So a lovely summery mix of roses, gerberas and cornflowers, and that quite unusual garden flower called Phlomis. I think that's something that you can all achieve at home, and if you don't want to use the floral foam, you can really easily do this with wire mesh, or you could put a sellotape grid across the front of your jug. Now it's time for me to thank you as ever for watching. Please comment in the box below what you think of the design or what you would like to see, or if you've got any questions, add it in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because that's the important part, because it helps everybody else find these amazing designs. Share with your friends and hit that notification bell if you want to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. As ever, thanks for watching and bye for now.